Hey guys, welcome back to the Unframe of Mind show where we have uncomfortable conversations without a condom. I have got a special guest who has been on our show before under a different title, but today he's coming to introduce to us his new app he's got going on called the Abuse Log. Anthony Trawick is here in the house as well. Hey, what's up, Anthony?
Hey, what's going on, guys? What's going on,
All right.
Daniel?
And he is coming at us remotely today because he is a weak bitch and maybe has a little sticky boo boo.
Yeah,
So, but he's a trooper. He's a trooper. So, thanks for coming and having this conversation with us today, Anthony.
yeah. If I can't be in studio, I can at least be at my own comfort of my own home
Damn,
and trying to get a little bit better. So, but yeah, it's
damn
good to
right.
be back on here.
Hell, your home studio looks pretty damn good.
It's
I'd
coming
say.
together, man. It's coming together quite
Yeah,
nice.
there you
In
go.
the process of ordering a laptop and a camera. So, yeah, things are coming
Got
together.
them fancy lights and the Baum Chicka Wow Wow bed back there.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
All
I
right.
make a different kind of YouTube channel.
That's right. That's right. And introducing our guest of honor for today is Mr. Brett Segal. Good
Well,
morning.
great to see you, man. It's been a long
Hey,
time. I'm glad
Hey,
to
good to
see you
have you back.
both.
absolutely. And you took a little break from us for a little while from the chaos of the YouTubes and whatnot.
It was
What
complicated
happened?
because of because let's just say I procreated with a person who kind of threatened my political stuff a little bit just because there was a we 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 had the same opinion, but let's just say she would make she would do the threatening thing, you know what I mean? So me being outspoken about politics just wasn't in the cards for the last few years. It simply wasn't.
Oh, good lord. So it was kind of a control mechanism that kept you quiet. Is
Yeah.
that what Oh,
Yeah, well, listen, there's nothing more important than the boy, than my baby.
oh,
So
he's adorable too.
thank you. I appreciate that. Straight out these nuts.
I did it a few times myself. I got
I know you. I know.
pretty cute one time.
You're a prolific dad.
I'm good at it. I'm good
Yeah,
at it. It's a
yeah,
skill.
man. Yeah.
It's a real skill.
Well, I only have one, so the future of this bloodline
No
depends on
pressure. No pressure.
no
No
pressure,
pressure.
right?
So let's just jump right into it here. Let's give you a moment to tell me a little bit about your website and your new app you have going on. Kind of what it is, how it came to be, et cetera, et cetera. And I will be bringing it up on screen to show that as well.
Dope. Okay, well, it's called the abuse log. It's basically okay. There's a so all right. So the two most Googled words in 2023 were narcissism and gaslighting. And unfortunately, I've experienced my share of both in the last several years. Okay. So basically, what I have done was created an app that it was specifically designed to bypass, fight psychological abuse, which there's never been anything done like this before. And I only know that because I was looking for something to do that to help me out with my experience of it. Because look, you try to listen, you try to explain gaslighting and narcissism to people who haven't experienced it firsthand, and uh, what ends up happening is that people look at you like you have two heads, like you just grew another head. Okay,
Yeah.
because the psychological aspect of it is so insidious that it's hard to wrap your head around unless you've been there. And even if you have been there, there's no way to really like to put it this way, it's like it's almost impossible to understand even if you have been through it, which is the most bonkers thing about psychological abuse oftentimes. And this is what is so crazy about psychological abuse, is that you don't even know you're going through it at the time. There's so much shame and guilt that's involved in it that
Yeah.
you often would think, well, maybe I had this coming, or maybe I deserve this, which is what the psychological abuser wants you to think. That's part of the abuse, is to make you doubt your own self and your own humanity. So what I did was created an app that basically helps to unravel the spaghetti, which
And this
the
is
narcissistic abuser wraps around your head and tries to strangle you with.
right. And this is assuming that they understand that they're going through it and know to look for a tool like this.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
That's right.
that seems like
And
quite a challenge. How would you say? I mean, I don't know how I would do if I'm in the middle of it and I really don't understand what's going on. I don't even know that I would know to look for help, which is kind of the part of the insidious nature of it.
that's right. And oftentimes what a narcissistic or psychological abuser will do is use the terminology of narcissism and psychological abuse in order to make you feel like you're the abuser, make you feel
Mhm.
like you're the one who is at fault, which
Yep.
prevents a lot of people from actually seeking help. And when people are lost in this, like, listen, there it is really an amazing skill, to be honest, to screw with someone's head and torment them in a way that um in a way that makes you shrink into yourself. Okay, it's a
Yeah, I might even disagree with you on that as far as the skill level. Because I'm thinking a lot of these folks that do this have had it modeled to them. It comes
right,
as naturally to them as, speaking Japanese when you grew up in Japan.
right.
It's just that it's what they've had modeled. It's what they know. It's what they're familiar with. So it's just a tool that they can use. That's just there. And a lot of people, from what I understand, don't even realize they're doing it.
You're
Like, they
absolutely right about that.
don't
You're
realize they're
absolutely right.
being an abuser,
That's
which is
Yeah, but
absolutely
the ones that know that they're doing it are also very good at hiding it.
oh yeah, for sure.
right. That's
And
right.
now I was wanting to ask you, Brett, so on your app, do you actually have a place on there for people to go and look for the signs of the narcissistic behaviors to look for to see if they might be going down or having that same experience that maybe others are having? Do you have anything that's on that app to be able to kind of source that out?
Absolutely. That's actually one of the beautiful parts about it, is that there built into the app, there are resources, knowledge about all the kinds of different personality traits. Mostly we talk about narcissism, but in actuality, this is all cluster B personalities actually have a tendency towards abuse. This is why they are sort of clustered together in the same. Cluster B is antisocial, borderline personality disorder,
Mhm.
histrionic personality disorder, and also narcissistic personality disorder. And built into the app is all of the symptoms and all of the different ways that you can suss that out. Not only the symptoms of the disorder, but the behaviors that go along with it. It's all baked into the app. It's all there, and it's in a simple format where you can literally just start checking things off. There's examples of every single trait, so to speak. So, well, here's the thing about cluster B. Cluster B is hard to diagnose because people who are cluster B, they don't think they have a problem. Okay. This is why they're such consummate gaslighters. Okay. For
Yep.
the most part, like an antisocial or a borderline, or say a narcissist, for example, they don't think they have a problem. They think that the world revolves around them, right? How does a narcissist unscrew a light bulb? Well, they just stand there while the world revolves around them. Right.
It's
Okay.
true.
Okay. So the thing is, they don't think they need help, so they don't get diagnosed, right? So oftentimes you have people who are reacting. The people who are reacting to the abuse are the ones who end up seeking therapy. Okay, the people who actually are suffering from the abuse, and they don't really, and then this is the thing, they don't exactly always know exactly what's happening to them at the time. So what the app does is it helps to suss all that out. It will literally walk you through step by step. And then this is why I call the abuse log, is because part of the part of the trauma comes from not knowing what's going on. So what it basically does is it allows you to log incidents of abuse and puts them basically in the right filing cabinet. That way it helps you understand where to file it. Um, there are I don't know how much you guys are into the whole lingo, but oftentimes what a narcissistic abuser will do is enlist allies. We affectionately call them flying monkeys, like the Wicked Witch of the West.
Hmm.
Okay. And what ends up happening is that they enlist a small army to make you think that either you deserve it or that it's not happening, or, you know, all kinds of other things to, you know, to get you in trouble with the law, to isolate you from family members, to triangulate you with different with different people, to make you basically feel like you're absolutely alone in the abuse, which let me tell you something. It is the most bonkers feeling when I tell
Oh
you
yeah,
it's
I've experienced that firsthand. Just a brief synopsis of my situation of what I've currently gone through in my life with my mom. It wasn't until well, probably 4 years ago, I realized that she was a severe narcissist. And all the things that you're actually pointing out are things that I've gone through personally that I've actually have kind of awakened to over the last 4 years.
right.
When you were talking about isolating you or alienate you from the rest of the family, she's done it with my daughter. She's done it with my ex-wife. She's done it with friends that I've known since I was little, other family members, you know. And then when you try to talk to them about what's going on, you know, you're made out to be the bad person or the
Right.
crazy one. What are you talking about, you know? And that's something I'm currently going through over the last 4 years, and I'm still kind of navigating those waters. And how, you know, I've had to sever a lot of ties with people because of this. Unfortunately, a lot of them family, because of what my mother has done. And I've learned a lot of things over the last 4 years because of this behavior. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but one of the
Good.
things that I did want to ask you, a lot of people don't know the early detections of how to look for or spot somebody with narcissistic behaviors. Have you done a video or maybe a tutorial on your app that maybe can kind of give some people some insight on, like, key things that people do or say, or behaviors that might be kind of those contributing factors that maybe some people need to either take relationships a little slower or maybe step back a little bit,
Mhm.
and kind of approach that with a little bit more caution? Have you thought about doing like just a small video? Because a lot of people, and like you said, to your credit, you know, a lot of people don't know that they're in it. But I think what a lot of these apps and what a lot of people aren't talking about are the early detections of narcissistic behaviors. Because I've been going through this my whole life,
Right.
and it was, you know, 4 years ago that I finally figured this out, and I'm 43. So I
So
think that would be beneficial if we had something like that. I just didn't know if the app did, or if you thought about doing like a little introduction video to kind of give people that, you know, kind of
well,
that.
well,
Go
let me
ahead.
tell you. Well, there are a lot of videos out there
Okay.
that deal with this, and I'll talk about a couple of those things, just like, you know, on this show. Um, but this is the problem with the community right now. The community is huge. It's millions and millions strong of people who are either A, talking about it, or B, looking for information on it. So there's a lot of information out there. The problem is, and this is the kind of gap that I was trying to fill, was that it's almost like you can't really, like, you don't get it until it's too late, until you're already so deep down inside of it. Like,
Yeah.
for, listen, I'm right there with you. I was isolated, I was triangulated, I was smeared, I was scapegoated, and I ended up having some run-ins, some unfortunate and unjust, let me tell you, absolutely, completely unjust run-ins with law enforcement of several different agencies because of a smear campaign that happened as a result of years of being triangulated and isolated from family. And believe it or not one person stopped to give me a buzz and say, "Hey, by the way, someone's saying all these things about you, but we just wanted to check up on you and see what was happening. Like, what's your side of the story?" This is what a narcissist or someone who's cluster B does. They will isolate you and they will smear you to the point that nobody would even bother to ask you. They just
Nope.
assume
Oh,
that
I
what is
know.
said about you is
Yeah.
absolutely true. They take it completely on face value alone,
Hmm.
and then you end up completely alone, and you have people basically going out and doing the bidding of the narcissist on their behalf, basically because of a smear campaign.
So
Okay.
So none of your close friends and family or anything like that. Not a single person. Not one of your best friends from high school. Like
there are
nobody who heard the stuff that you were alleged to be doing or not doing. They never called. They never tried to check up and just verify the story. That's wild.
Anthony, just like you, I had to detach from certain family members, and
Yeah.
the people who have been left standing, those are the special people in the world who would come. And I've seen a lot of this happen in action firsthand. And you know when you have a friend, when they're willing to let you know that this is happening like around you in your periphery, but also stand up for you and fight the narrative of the narcissistic or borderline person who insists on just going around and like tearing down your name and beating your reputation. Listen, one of the 48 laws of power from Robert Greene, he's very, very cool guy, is preserve your reputation. And this is something that narcissists really, really have a deep and I would say implicit understanding of, that if they can harm your reputation, they're basically harming your future prospects and the trajectory of the rest of your life.
Yep.
And that is something that, you know, normal people, you think, all right, I can't just like say something that's like completely patently like untrue or unproven to people, but they just, at the drop of a hat, that's what these kinds of personalities will do. What the app does is brilliant. It takes incidents of abuse and it puts it in a place where you can actually dissect what's actually happening. And at the very least, look, you can't stop a smear campaign from happening. Listen, a lie will go around the world 5 times while the truth is still getting its trousers on.
Yep.
Okay. So there are certain things that you can't stop. What you can stop is the psychological trauma that is going to happen as a result of just all of a sudden being completely isolated and being completely alone in your life.
Right.
But also, what it can do is it can um, give you a place to respond, give you a place to go, and especially if there's legal stuff involved, because that's one thing that a narcissist or a cluster B loves to do. They love to toss around, hey, I'm calling CPS, or I'm calling APS, or I'm going to get you in trouble. Everybody knows about you. Everybody knows about you, all the things that you do. You know, there are ways that you can, if you log the abuse, first of all, you can unravel the spaghetti that they're trying to just enmesh you in, but also you can fight allegations, which is part of the abuse, oftentimes part of the abuse.
Yeah, that was something. Now my situation didn't go as far as, having law enforcement involved. Mine went as far as, like, I had a friend of mine that I've known since I was in diapers when I, grew up in Florida, and Marie and I were very close, and so close that, she felt like just like a natural sister to me, and that was probably one of the hardest ties that I had to cut because of the nasty text message that I got from her that was in correspondence to a situation that happened between me and my mom.
Mhm.
And that was a friendship of, 38 or 39 years
Right.
Wow.
that I had to let go.
Yeah.
That wasn't easy. And and I think, and I'm sure you can probably relate to this, but as I've had to sever these relationships, that actually adds more psychological damage on top of the abuse that you're going through, because not only are you going through that abuse, but then you're also having to let go of so many, you know, things that you were tied to that person with,
Right. Right.
that I've had with Marie. I mean, I literally had given my daughter her middle name as Marie because we were that close.
Right.
And it was one of them situations where the more I did it, the more actually, as funny as it sounds, I felt more relieved. Um, because I knew the more I disconnected myself from that circle or that triangle of people that she was, trapping me with, could no longer have that stranglehold on me, and they're going to believe whatever it is that she says, because like you said, not one person, even Marie, who I've known for 30 something years, never
Right.
called me,
Right.
never had a discussion. What's really going on? Why is she saying this? Why is she doing this? That hurt. That probably hurt more than anything else that I've gone through, because you think that you have built a relationship that is worthy enough of calling that person and saying, "Hey, what's really going on here?" Never
Right.
got that phone call. And so some of the things that I've learned over the last 4 years is that, yes, it's difficult, but the abuse in itself is now being compiled on top of that with the relationships that I've had to sever. So with both of those situations, it's like, okay, that's a bit
It's
much to
heartbreaking.
take on. I mean, it's a lot to digest. It's a lot to mentally kind of wrap your head around. And it's something that doesn't die down overnight. I
No.
mean, here it
No.
is 4 years later, and I still struggle with having to let go of Marie, but I know it was the right thing to do. And I hate the fact that temporarily the last memory that she has of her and I is something that my mother has done
Right.
towards me. You know what I'm saying? And I hate that she's been wrapped up in that kind of situation. And of course,
Can I
others as
parse?
well.
Can I help parse this out for a minute? Because this is something that I'm going through too. Like, and
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that you have gone through this. Is Listen,
Yeah,
being
yeah, for sure.
scapegoated by a mother, by a caregiver, especially, a mother,
Mhm.
is particularly devastating.
Yeah.
Especially when they take out a smear campaign on you. Listen, someone who has narcissistic tendencies has to control the narrative. And people who are scapegoated are usually the ones who like to speak up.
Yeah.
Okay. They're the ones who can unmask the narcissist. So that's why their opinions and their actions have to be placed on a level of of evil. Okay. Like, you can't be reasoned with. They can't
Mhm.
call you. Marie couldn't call you because you're evil. And
Yeah.
who would know better than the man's mother?
Yeah.
Who would know better? Right. So this is one of those things where parents unfortunately do this to their kids, and it goes to a sense of intergenerational trauma. Okay. Something, for whatever reason, look, it's a completely different discussion what the reason is. Why did she become like this? But some parents, what they do is they cast their children into roles. And if you have enjoyed the role of scapegoat from a parent, then you have probably not even truly, like, it's almost impossible to grasp the smoke and mirrors and all the stuff going on around you for your whole entire life. Because if you've been cast into the role of scapegoat, you're going to be taking fault. You're
Hmm.
going to be taking shame. They're going to smear your name. You're going to say, "Why is what's going on here? Why are people more mad than like? Why are people more mad than they would be at anything else? Why are they more mad at me?" Right?
Right.
So, what parents in this case end up doing, is they treat you how to be treated. This is what the intergenerational stuff happens. So if
Right.
we're not acknowledging what it is that's happened to us, then we end up going to that place where we imbibe the shame and then possibly even project it onto other people.
Yeah, we become repeat offenders.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's absolutely
Well,
right.
and what was so ironic about this whole situation, though, was, you know, and to kind of give you an idea of what happened and what set all this stuff up for me, and what made it was it was the most bizarre thing that happened that kind of made everything click.
Right.
So my stepdad, Jim, passed away about 5 years ago now. And we had a dedication of life, or is it dedication of life? No, celebration of life. Sorry, July 4th. And we had a bunch of his friends and family that came in from all over this. We were down my folks lived in Tampa, or my mom still does. And I was down for a week. Now I had gotten there a couple days, earlier to help set up with everything and get everything kind of situated because I knew it was hard for my mom, and I wanted to be there not only for her but to help her with, this, the big celebration of life that we were having. But before everybody got there, she was just bad mouthing people left and right, even Marie and Mike. It was just like I couldn't believe what I was listening to. Like she had her nail tech that came over to the house and was doing her nails, and then she had another lady come over to get her hair done and just gossiping about all these people that were coming. And the only reasons why I knew is because I knew who these people were,
Right.
So and then it was just like I'm kind of sitting there, I'm in the other room listening to the TV, but I could overhear the conversations. But then everybody gets there and it's like, "Hey, how you doing? Oh my God, thank you for coming." Pat them on the back and hugging
Right.
them, and
Mhm.
"Thank you so much. I love you guys."
That's
And
right.
then at the end of the night, I'm sitting outside by the pool, and I'm like, that's when everything just clicked. Like,
Right.
what the fuck did I just watch? It was like Jekyll and Hyde.
Right. You
Like,
watched what she was
Yeah.
doing to you the whole
whoa.
time, but she was doing it to other people right in front of you.
Right.
Okay.
Well, the
You
thing
don't
is, she
scare.
lives in Tampa, and I'm in
Mhm.
Tennessee.
Right.
So, over the last probably, I don't know, probably close to 10 years, I haven't really seen her that much unless I go down to visit. And even then, my mom is kind of on her best behavior at times. Not so much, but for the most part, she is. But in that situation, because the dynamic of that day was so just
Toxic.
different, and it was just like, what the hell did I just watch? This was like a I don't just a bad soap opera. Like, I mean, just the Peter and Sally are friends from the UK. She was just talking about how much, Peter was flirting with her, and Sally was pissed off about it. And then they flew in from England. Like, and I'm listening to her badmouth these people. And then they show up, and I'm like, I'm sitting here greeting these people out in the driveway, knowing what my mother has said, and obviously I can't say anything. And it's just like I feel so bad, and I don't know what to do. And they kind of, whether she knew it or not, but she kind of backed me into this corner that I'm now stuck between this rock and a hard place because I know what she said about them. I've got to not say anything, but then I am happy to see them and I want to spend time with them. But then I see how she interacts with them, and knowing what she said, by the end of the night, it's just
Right.
So you
That's
became
a
kind of an
holy hell.
involuntary
that's
you
a
became kind of
tactic
an
called.
involuntary flying monkey in that case then, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah,
I
exactly. She was trying to turn you into a flying monkey, even though she was also abusing you. Like there's all sorts of, you see, this is what I'm saying. That's the web of confusion that a narcissistic person will
yeah.
sort of put on your life. Okay. She was not only had she done the same thing to you throughout your life, but she was also trying to triangulate you and all these other people who were at this event so that you couldn't have a good event, so that you couldn't actually celebrate in the moment. Okay. She
I
wanted
don't
to
think
put you
she
in.
I well, let me back up for a second because I don't think she realized that I overheard the conversations because I was in the living room, she was in the kitchen. And there's like a half wall that divides the kitchen and the living.
Right.
They have a massive house. So
But she was
things
talking
tend
to
to
other
echo.
I mean, your mom's not
So
stupid. She knows that I'm sure she
Yeah.
knows how sound carries in that
okay,
house. I
I
feel
don't
like maybe she knew full well that you heard her
so the
or
way
didn't
the
care.
well they live in a big house, and the way that it's set up is that the kitchen and the um we call it not really like a den but like a sitting area, and then there's like this big U-shaped window that looks out to the pool in the backyard. Well, right there's a table where she was getting her nails and her hair done. Like she would actually have people come to the house to do, like, she never went out to do stuff. Like
Right.
she had that much money where she can bring in a nail tech and get her hair done at the house. So that's what she always did. But I was in the living room, was on the other side of that wall. But because the house is so big and it's got high ceilings, things tend to, you can hear people throughout the house. And that's what I'm saying is that I don't know if she knew I was in the living room because she couldn't see me, but I could see her through the reflection of the glass window that curves around by the pool, because there's a walkway that kind of goes off to the right, a little bit, that actually goes into the kitchen and goes into the sitting area. And I could hear it. Now, was
Right.
it enough for me to clearly make out what she said? Yes, I knew who she was talking about. I knew all the names. I don't know if she knew that I knew that I was listening, because I didn't know if maybe she knew I was in the other room. Um, I don't know. All I'm saying is that it was a situation where it makes me wonder how many other situations she's done like this. And then the other thing too is, during that time, her and my sister, like, on this up and down roller coaster ride between the two of them. They're 6 months, they're the best of friends. 6 months, they hate each other's guts. I hate that fucking roller coaster ride, and I got off that a long time ago. But when all this was going on with Jim's celebration of life, I had pulled my mom off to the side. Then I said, "Hey," I said, "is Nicole coming?" She goes, "I don't know what's wrong with your sister. She's acting a fool and all this other stuff." And I'm like, "Okay, well, tell her she needs to be here." Well, I'm a firm believer that a parent should never badmouth one child to the other.
That's right.
She did this all the time with both of us. She called me up and be like, "You're not going to believe what your sister did." Well, I really don't need to know that,
Right.
and vice
Pitting
versa.
siblings, pitting siblings against each other is something that narcissistic parents do to their kids, and
Yeah,
it's so utterly toxic.
Yeah, unless your
yeah.
sister's like murdering hobos in the street, it probably doesn't need to be brought up to you.
No,
Well,
yeah,
and what it would do is, it would, as the oldest sibling, when my mom would tell me, "Well, you're not going to believe what your sister's doing," and then she would tell me, it would get me upset, because I feel like I had a
of
responsibility
course.
to protect my mother.
Right.
And next thing you know it, I'm in a text war with my sister, and then we're pitted against each other
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, she enlisted you as in her little
as an
army,
ally. Yeah.
right, as an ally to harm. And honestly, so here's the thing: who's the victim in that case? Who's the person who is? We know mom's the perpetrator, but who's the victim? Your sister, or is it you, or is it both of
I
you?
I
Was she
think it's both of
translating?
us,
Yeah, she was.
because regardless, you don't do that to siblings. You don't, no matter how much you don't like what the other one's doing, you don't badmouth them. My mom, regardless of what my father had done, like, I can remember growing up, she used to tell me, like, how bad my father was. And it wasn't until I got to a certain age where I started thinking for myself. This was probably my mid 20s, and I started to really think for myself. And then I had questions,
Right,
but I wasn't going to my mom. I started reaching out to my dad.
right.
That's when everything got really interesting, because then all of a sudden, these stories that I've been told my entire life
You
of
got the
how bad
truth,
my father was.
right?
Now, some of them are true. Okay. I have to give my mom some credit, but then again, is it her position or her place to tell me what he did to her? Because that was so long ago.
Well,
I'm sorry, but if I've done something like, you hear about these sexual allegations of people 30 years ago. I'm sorry, but if it was 30 years ago and you're bringing that to the present, 30 years later, you're not relevant. You should have dealt with it then. That was my position with my mother, but she hung on to the past so much that it was like, she honestly did the same thing with me. She would bring up stuff that I did when I was in my early 20s, now that I was in my late 30s.
and act
And
like
I'm
you just
like,
did it yesterday, and that you're still,
yes,
and that you have
yes,
no grace, no forgiveness. There's no
right.
out for you. But here's the
Yeah,
thing: that's where listen, that's one of those things. That's an abuse tactic.
yeah,
Okay, where she pits people against each other. This is something that cluster B people do, where they go and they pit people against each other, and they will pit two people against each other, and you can't even tell at a certain point who the actual abuse victim is,
yeah, it's
because
pretty
they'll say
insane.
something negative to the other person about you, but then they'll say something negative to them to you. Okay.
Yeah,
That way
yeah,
you're pitted against each other. Okay.
yeah,
And then at the end of the day, when you don't have people who are, like you said, you were in a text war with your sister,
yeah,
at what point did someone say, "Hey, when is mom going to stop trying to pit us against each other?" No, that's not the thing that actually ends up happening. And this is what the app does. Okay. You can not only discuss things in the app that have to do with the abuser, but other people that are involved in the periphery, because that's one of the things that makes the abuse so hard hitting, is when you have no one left, when you are literally alone in this feeling. Okay. So you're not just logging an abusive incident. You see that the whole incident with your mom at the celebration of life, that was an abuse incident. That's something you log in the app. And what's the abuse? The abuse is the tactic that she was using, which was smear campaign, triangulation, gossiping, isolation. She was trying to isolate all the people she was talking about. She was trying to isolate them. There's all kinds of stuff that was going on. There's different dynamics going on in that one incident that made it that gives it bang for the buck, right? Think about how many people she hurt in that moment. Not just their reputations, but the relationships with each other.
You know, and it's nuts because I almost kind of feel like this is a therapy session with you in a way, but but in a good way for the app, because it kind of explains what all you can actually detail in it based off of my conversation with you about my experience. But um I'm glad that you're doing this app, and I'm glad that others, because I'll heavily promote this, because I wish this was, well, it might have been around something else like this, but I doubt it, because I actually, when I started my research on narcissism, I didn't really find a whole lot of like help. And there's help out there, but it's not to the extent
Right.
of like a sense of community. You didn't have a community of people that can kind of rally around you and say, "Hey, I've been through this too." I don't need a therapist because, in my opinion, narcissistic people don't go to therapists, and it's always been shown and proven that the percentage of people that go are so low. That's one of the reasons why they can't really diagnose anything, because they don't have enough data to prove the statistic of what actually is a narcissistic person. And I hate that, because those are the kind of people that won't go to therapy because they don't believe that they have a problem.
Well, here's
And
the thing. Some of them
go
do
ahead.
go to therapy, but they turn the therapist into a flying monkey. They go to therapy and
Right.
they smear their partner, and then they smear
Yeah.
their son, and then they go home and they say, "You wouldn't believe what my therapist said about you. My
Yeah.
therapist said that you are
Are the
wrong
problem.
and that you are an abusive person." So,
Yeah.
and they diagnosed me with bipolar, something sympathetic,
Yeah.
something that you can remedy with a drug, when in actuality the real thing is that they are a narcissist. They don't have bipolar disorder. Okay, they might go around saying, I'm bipolar, or I even BPD, even borderline personality disorder, is one of the more like sympathetic ones of the cluster B. But believe me, they all have a trail of destruction that go behind them,
Yeah.
and nobody wants to be the narcissist.
Well, that
Nobody
that
wants
leads
to
me
be antisocial and a psychopath. Okay.
that leads me to another question I'd like to
Yeah.
ask you, especially nowadays when it seems like, you go on TikTok and everybody's a narcissist. Like narcissism is somehow like this catch-all uh,
That's right.
label that's been given to every damn thing, and it's like it's hard to define. It's hard to
He didn't
pinpoint.
take the trash out. What a narcissist.
Yeah, essentially. So, I guess my question for you would be, as far as this app goes, as far as, has it been verified by professionals, or is there some kind of a I don't know if there's some kind of a, I
I
don't
don't,
just some kind of, an official, backing of this app, or is this
I made
completely.
the app that I needed
Yeah.
in my absolute darkest moment. And I looked for it, and I looked for it, and I searched high and I searched low, and it doesn't exist other than until I made it. And this is a completely personal thing. It has, it's got 100% success rate thus far, as in when you log the abuse, you get the full picture of what is actually happening to. It's just like any journal. Like, if you feed it truth, it will pump out the truth. If you lie to it, just like lying to any therapist, it will pump out a lie to you.
What do you mean by pump out? How does that actually look
No,
in?
I don't mean, I mean that affectionately, because the log has a timeline. It's got all kinds of things. So like the timeline, for example, for the incident that you went through, Anthony, you would put that event on the date that it happened. You would
Okay.
tag all the people involved, and you would highlight all the things that were said about those people,
Right.
and basically create a little web of information around that event. Who is the flying monkey here? Who is the abuser? Who are any secondary victims? And does this log relate to another log that you made sometime in the past? All these things kind of converge into a web of information that you ultimately have to use in order just to stop the bleeding, stop your own mental bleeding.
I know you keep describing it as like this web of information. Is there some kind of a other than just a calendar view that you can kind of look at? Is there some kind of a visual representation that it spits out, or how does that?
I'm working on that. I've got a lot of things cooking for the ways to represent the information. At the moment, the timeline view is pretty beautiful, but what I'm looking for is something a little bit more expensive, if you know what I mean. And financial abuse is one of them. If I could afford to do a certain kinds of representation, like a genogram, for example, because one of the profound things about the app is you and I would say this is without a condom controversial. Okay, you go in and you profile people. You say, this is my mother, she does this, she has this tendency, she has this trait, here's my example of what of when she did this particular thing, here is the date and the time that she did this particular thing. And you actually set up a profile of people in your life, whether it be someone who is abusive to you, whether it be someone who you were triangulated with. You could even do one with your kids who are either being alienated from you or who are also being victimized by an abuser. Okay,
Right.
this is a cool, very, very neat thing. You can identify secondary victims, people who you witness being abused by someone. So it's not just about complaining about people. It's really about
It's documenting what you're going through.
documenting what you're right, and giving yourself the validation that you need to keep your head on straight throughout the process of healing and getting past this. Half the battle is figuring out what the hell is going on.
So let me ask you this. So as you're documenting everything, do you still continue having those relationships with said individual that's a narcissist?
That's one of those things where you have to parse that out. What we do have is research and aspects of no contact, going no contact or low contact. Oftentimes, for example, me with my narcissistic ex, we have shared custody, so we have to see each other. We can't
Right.
go no contact. So you can identify the relationships in your life in terms of the level of contact that you have decided to give them.
So
And you
kind of
can change
minimize
them.
the
You can low
yes.
contact, full contact, or no contact. And you
that's-
can parse all this out with like color coded emojis. It's like super fun.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
basically eliminating your contact on or what you're willing to tolerate to a certain extent, only because you still have to be compliant with, your visitations with your child, obviously. So
Right.
yeah,
And you
that
don't.
makes sense. But in my case with my mother, I completely cut her out. I mean, and what's weird about that though is I don't feel bad. Like I don't, she is my mother to some degree. I care about her and love her, but for the most part, I want nothing to do with her.
Well,
She's just an evil person,
what
evil
she
to the
did was
core.
horrible. What she did was absolutely horrible.
Well, to know
And
that she's been
good for
doing it
your
for
own
as long as
son.
she does, and she does it to so many others, it's like
Right.
what upsets me more than her being a narcissist is the other people around her that are affected, that no matter how much I try to reach out, which I won't,
Mhm.
um, until they have that awakening like I did, they're never going to see it. They're never going to believe it. And I
Right.
am not at 43 years old going to spend that energy on that situation trying to convince everybody else that she's this way.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that I'm giving up. It's I have been fighting this battle with her up until I was 38 years old. 38 years of my life of battling this with her and trying to do things to appease her, and my my anxiety going through the roof before I go down to Florida. Like, this shouldn't be happening. So
Mhm.
let me give an example of just what it was like for me. Okay.
Yeah.
So I at this time I was dating this woman, Tanya, and we had decided to go down to visit my mom. And I think this was just before my mom and Jim had gotten married. And we decided that we were going to stay with them at their house because they had all the room in the world. And w- me and Tanya, the girl that I was dating, went to go pick up something for one of the, I want to say it was one of the friend of the families. It was late at night, whatever. I pick up a Monster at the gas station, to help keep me awake. I get back to the house. I set it on the counter because it was empty. Didn't think nothing about it. I was exhausted. I was ready for bed. I go to bed. I get up the next morning. That Monster can was still sitting there. For 2.5 hours, I had to listen to my mom bitch about that Monster can. Why couldn't you throw it away? It was only 5 feet from the trash. You're being lazy. I hope you don't live that way at your house and treat your house this way. She did this for 2.5 hours. Okay.
Right.
It got to the point where I said, we're gone. We're leaving.
Right.
Oh crap.
Right. Because she wants to feel worthless all day.
It was like, I have never seen a grown person, an empty can. That's all it was. Just go to great lengths to talk about how horrible of a person I am
Right.
because I just didn't throw something away. All that could have been said when I got up, hey, Aunt, you left your Monster can on the counter. Can you please throw it away? Yeah, no problem.
Exactly.
And a story that,
I've heard that story before, and it
yeah,
exhausts me. I'm not even part of it. I'm just like,
But
that's just it seems so exhausting just to have to sit
it,
there and go, oh, what?
it was turned into an abusive situation, though. That was an abusive incident where you are sat down, spoken to like a
yeah,
little child, lambasted, lampooned, and harangued for something very simple and something
yeah,
that is, let's face it, it's really not that bad. Okay.
Yeah,
To
yeah,
feel the kind of, but
a
to walk
molehill beneath a
away from
mountain.
that situation and feel the kind of shame that you walk away with when people like that are try to foist their
Right.
abuse onto you, that is harmful. That is deeply harmful, especially from a caregiver.
it
I'm
wasn't really
honestly
harmful
think
as it, okay, it may have been
I feel
harmful,
bad.
but
Listen, I feel bad, but here's the thing. This is the kind of thing where one incident like that is not, if you were to go and say, "Hey, my mom is an abusive bitch because she gave me a 2-hour lecture." Okay, like we all get a 2-hour lecture from our parents. But over a sustained period of time, over a long period of time, that turns into death by a thousand paper cuts.
yeah,
Well,
One
not to
doesn't make a
mention,
difference, but over a long, long period of time, that does present issues, psychological issues, where you feel like, man,
yeah, not to
maybe I
mention
am
that
kind of a piece of shit.
not to mention with this one incident, if it was just the can and it was just this 2 hour, lecture, but then afterwards she came back and said, listen, I don't know what the hell came over me. I'm sorry, but and apologize for it. Like that. Yeah, that could be a standalone incident and be like, forgivable.
no,
Exactly.
Right.
she
Like
never
it's like,
apologized.
if
It
it's,
was,
Exactly. Listen,
we
yeah,
everybody
it's,
makes
left,
mistake,
we
right?
went to the beach, we were gone for the day, and I told Tanya, I said, I'm not staying here at the house. This is absolutely insane. I don't need to be talked to that way. And it was just like, if anybody actually saw what I went through with my mom during that before I realized what was going on, it was Tanya. She saw a lot of the ins and outs of
Right.
the progression of how bad it had gotten there towards the end. And I just want to add this, and it's something with my experience that I not only that I went through with my ex-girlfriend Tanya, but with also other people that were key players in that circle or that triangle of friends. This is something I completely hate now, is when I get people in my own circle telling me, "Oh, it's just your mom. You know how she is." You know, She ain't going to be around much longer. You don't get to see her that much. It's like you're telling me that I should accept that behavior because she's my mother. Like she gets some sort of pass to be a narcissistic bitch because she's my mother.
Yeah.
No, that's not how this shit's going to fly. Because if I turn around and start doing that, then I'm going to start opening that gate for everybody else. Then I
Right.
become a doormat for everybody else. I've been telling people, do not do that to other people. Don't sit there and just give them a free pass because it's your sister, because it's your mother, your dad. No, that shit don't fly. Don't tell people that, because
That's right.
if they're genuinely going through something that is affecting them, you're just encouraging that behavior to escalate.
That's right.
And
And,
adding
and
to it.
that's what they did. So going back to what I was telling you, by cutting all these people out, and I felt better over time, is because I realized that I don't have those people in my corner anymore telling me that I have
Right.
to accept that behavior.
Right.
That's something that is never discussed. I don't ever hear anybody talking about it, especially on podcast form or otherwise. But that is just such a wrong way of thinking and a behavior, that you're telling somebody that they should accept someone for who they are when they know that what they're doing is not a good thing.
A lot of the gaslighting takes place by platitudes from people who have no idea what you are even going through
Right,
and don't care to really listen. And
right.
this is I think what the app does. Like, I there might have been a miscommunication. There's no community. This is a journal. This is a log. There's
Oh,
no
okay, so
community just
you
yet.
don't have any other people that are a part of that you can connect
No,
with?
no, no, no. We have those already. There's tons of those out there. People
Okay,
who want to talk to each other. This is a personal experience
personal. Okay,
where you identify everything that is happening in your community and
gotcha.
you figure out what's happening to you. This is for you. This isn't for them. This isn't for anyone. One day I think we're going to do a community, but let me tell you something. A lot of the gaslighting, a lot of the abuse comes inadvertently from people who literally just have no idea what you're going through. And if
Yeah,
they do, shame on them. And if they don't, then they could probably be a little bit more empathic instead of saying, "Oh, that's your mom, whatever. Hey, it's your mom. She's not going to be here. Family's family." That's the biggest load of bullshit in the world. Family doesn't harm family like
no,
you are being harmed. And a little bit of validation goes a long way. Okay? Because imagine you took those responses from other people who are saying, "Oh, well, it's just your mom. She's not going to be here for a while." Imagine if you took that and then you were still there with your mom going through that same old thing and experiencing that crippling anxiety like that you feel every time you walk up to her house,
yeah,
right? That is a
yep.
crippling feeling that you don't have to subject yourself to that.
I can't tell you how many times I was sitting there just like palms are sweating, and just before I boarded my flight, man, I'm just like, I really don't. I don't
I
want to
know,
go down
man.
there and deal with this for a week.
Your knees were
Let me
weak, your
let me
arms
tell you
were heavy,
something. Let
there's
me tell you
vomit on
Vietnam
your
something.
sweater
spaghetti.
already.
I had a cough. I would have a every time I would drive up, I would start to have this like dry heave oftentimes. One time, because of what happened with the ex, not my mom, they're both kind of cut from the same vine and peas in the same pod, even though they can't stand each other. Both of them are all like, "You can't abuse him. That's my job."
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
That's my job. So,
My crown's a
so
little bit bigger than yours.
Well, I do want to take a moment to focus on the importance of building strong communities,
yeah,
because that's something that I think society overall is hugely missing, and we kind of
Lacking big
mistake,
time.
yeah, we kind of
right.
mistake our families as that community, which as it turns out, maybe not be the wisest move. And I just wonder, is there something that you would recommend people do, maybe in conjunction with the app or outside of the app, where they can start to build a strong community, where they can start to build connections around them of people who won't abuse them at every given turn?
Well, what I would start out with is to find a good support group, like a solid support group support, I would say. But it's got to be pointed. It's got to be moderated and facilitated by someone who has done this before, by a veteran of this, someone who understands the terminology, someone who understands the dynamic, and and to find and to hear stories, to actually go and listen to the stories that people are saying, that people are going through, and that in and of itself is a healing experience. When you just know that you're not alone, when you know that you were isolated, when you can see the tactics for what they are. Like, let's keep going back to that situation with your mom at the celebration of life.
Yeah.
She was using tactics that have a name and have definitions. When you can point it out and check it off on a box and describe exactly how it is that this tactic affected you and how it isolated you and how it puts you in a position that you should never have been put in, especially by someone who is your mom, someone who's supposed to love you, triangulated you with all of these different people, whether she meant for you to hear it or not. She was also abusing the other people. Okay. She was also speaking to a whole bunch of other people. She was smearing a whole bunch of other people, a smear campaign. That's a tactic. That is a psychological abuse tactic. And when you can put your finger on it, stick a checkbox on it, and be able to describe it in those terms, that is a healing experience. When you have other people and you can discuss this and you have a common terminology for a support group, for example, this is a healing experience, because then you know that you are not isolated anymore. You know that you have a family that you have made, and a family that you can relate to, and people who understand what it is that you're going through. And it also helps you to see the red flags when you're dealing with new relationships.
So the greatest value that I'm seeing so far with this app is that it not only gives you the ability to journal out and really document your experiences, but it also gives you the vocabulary necessary to understand what's going on. And this sounds like there's a lot of education going on with this app.
Big time. Big time.
Yeah, that's
Lots of education.
and
And
just having the vocabulary and the words to describe
Right.
what's going on to you is huge. It's
That's right.
it's empowering, I think, would be a good
It
word.
is. We go through, there's two main sections when it comes to the educational part. One of them is personality traits, and the other section would be the actual actions, the behavior.
Tactics and stuff. Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
I could have used this journal, hell, I don't know, 7 years ago,
I'm telling
had
you,
I
this is
known what was going on. But I mean, here we are now. But, and it's interesting because it's like now that I've, moved on, obviously years later, I'm with my current girlfriend, Becky. I've gotten really close to her family, and oh my God, her mom is an absolute angel. Like
yeah,
the difference between her mother and mine, like I
right.
can't even begin to explain that. I love that woman so much, and it's just,
Yeah, she is
and
amazing. Met
there's a
her.
part of me that would, that thinks, why in the hell could my mom not be like, Becky's mom?
Right.
And it's a little envy and a little jealousy, because every kid wants a parent like that, like Becky's mom. And obviously I don't have that, but she's still a great woman, and been a huge part of my life in the last 4 years, and I will do anything for her and
That's
her
right.
dad. And it's just,
Right.
it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful relationship that I've been able to bond, between me and Becky's mom, and
Right.
to celebrate the holidays.
And it would give you opportunity to make room in your life for these kinds of relationships.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
it did. Yeah.
Brett, correct me
I
if I'm wrong. What I basically what I'm hearing, and I hear this come up a lot, is that as long as you have these narcissistic and abusive people in your life, they are doing their their damnedest to keep good quality people out of your life. And
yeah.
Exactly.
that
Absolutely.
I wonder if, Anthony, if you would have even found somebody like Becky if you were still in that situation, or as deeply
No.
involved.
That is an absolutely fair and legitimate question to ask. And it's like a really, really good question, because what ends up happening is, like with the smear campaign, for example, they will take something good and just shit right on it. They will take
Yeah,
something
because
good, a good
that's like,
person who's in your life, and triangulate you and say, hey, Anthony, he's a piece of shit, he's a real
well,
douche. He did that
yeah,
thing that time.
I mean, I can be at times, I ain't gonna lie, but
Whatever.
No, that's
no,
fair. That's fair. That's
but
true. I remember
You're a
that.
good man. You're a good man, though. That's the thing. They
but here,
want to put you into that he's a bad man kind of
Yeah,
mode,
that
so that
right.
you're not even acceptable to polite society.
You know, when you were talking about making room for other people in your life that are not so toxic, that's very true. And I'll tell you why, because Tanya was a part of those people, my ex-girlfriend, who was encouraging me to look past certain things and accept my mother for who she is.
Right.
And had I not ended that relationship, I would still be accepting my mother for who she is and not getting rid of her. So yes, that's
Yeah.
very on point with what you said with, you know, when you get rid of those people and it allows so much more, you know, room for growth when you bring in people that are not that toxic. I mean, I think everybody is a little toxic. Let's be honest here. I know I am at times, but not to the level that in which we're talking about today. But knowing the differences and seeing the differences between the parenting between Becky's parents and my mother, night and day. That's
Right.
when you know that you made the right decision.
That's right.
I
And you
mean,
don't
it's
want
not
someone
hard.
who's gonna sit there and make common cause with someone who is harming you, like actively harming you. You know, this is what the actual like original abuser wants. They
Yeah.
they don't want to they don't want to do their own dirty work.
Yeah.
They want to set you up so that you are relentlessly abused by other people.
Yeah.
Okay? People to like that whole entire thing. Oh, well, just it's just your mom, and maybe you should just forgive her. That's gaslighting. That is straight
Yeah.
up gaslighting.
Yeah.
There's something
Yeah.
else I want to throw into the mix here. Is not only have we covered the importance of the strong communities and the importance of building those. Um, I know you said one of the tactics for narcissist is the isolation tactic, the triangulation and isolation.
Big one. Yeah.
And that being said, I know men tend to be more loners. They tend to be more okay with being alone. So I almost imagine that it's worse for them because they're so much farther into it before they realize something's gone terribly wrong.
Oh,
They've been
absolutely.
isolated for so long, and they're okay with it. They're not, I'm okay with being alone, but
I've always
to a
been
certain
okay
point.
with being somewhat isolated. I mean, I talk all the time about wanting to go to Wyoming or, you know, wherever, Montana for a couple of weeks just with a tent and be gone from everything for weeks at a time and not have a cell phone and just do my own thing. I guess because isolation I know is good for me. That's why I do a lot of fishing by myself. It gives me a lot of time to think about things and process and stuff like that. So I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm talking the
if you're
difference
There's
between
talking,
a difference between going out.
voluntary. Yeah, I'm
There's a
talking.
big difference between going out for a fishing trip and having everybody in the world hate your guts because of a lie that somebody said
Yeah, it's
about
more like
you, and a
but
voluntary.
I
relentless
guess
ending smear campaign.
I guess for me, because I've gotten so far in this journey, I don't care anymore.
Right.
It doesn't affect me the way that maybe it might others, and I understand
Right.
that. But it's very liberating when you get to the point that I have and you don't really care, especially those who you thought were good friends of yours that you've known your entire life, even family, and even your, you know, siblings who, you know,
Right.
my sister I've not talked to in 6 years because of my mother.
Wow.
Um, and it's very sad because that's a relationship that I've always wanted to foster over the years, but just never been able to because of the constant, you know, up and down relationship between her and my mom. And I know if I try to have a relationship with Nicole now, it's just going to get back to my mom.
Right.
Therefore, I had to cut that relationship entirely, whether she knew it or not, because I don't need it to get back to my mom.
Right.
So all roads that lead to my mother, I've
Right.
burnt all those bridges, and I had to.
You had
Um,
to for your own
eh,
safety, like
but I'm okay with
putting on
that.
a mask in the when the airplane is going down.
Right,
You have
and I
to
would
protect
and I
yourself.
would
Have
I
to.
would tell you know, when we talk about the isolation and the loneliness and the, you know, the destructive, you know, things that are said to destroy, you know, to destroy somebody's character. I've been through it. I lived it. It was hard, it was difficult, but in the grand scheme of things, as the days, the weeks, as weeks turn into months and eventually into years, it got better. I mean, it's just like any relationship or breakup that you go through. You know, at the beginning, it's, oh my God, you know, you're bawling your eyes out, you're missing her, you know, what did I do wrong? And you do stupid shit, right? But over time, you do heal. You do mend those wounds to the best of your ability, and you move on. That's all you have in life. That is the one thing life ensures us from the moment of inception that we're brought into this world, is that life will always go forward. It cannot go backwards. You
Right.
know, so as long as you know that and you understand that about the progression of life, then you know that those days will get better. And
Right.
not everybody's going to think that way, and I get that. But what I would say to folks that are in that spot of not knowing what to do, you know, if they are using your app to journal, that I think by writing it down and pointing out the things that they're finding in, you know, these individuals of what they're doing, that's going to make the process even easier for them. Because I think if I had that at my disposal, if I had your app to log all this stuff, I probably would have been through this a lot quicker than what I have, you know, over the last 4 years.
At the very least,
Um,
you would be able to identify where it is that you were, you know, like obviously everybody does toxic things once in a while, but you would be able to track your own behavior as well. Okay.
yes,
There's
yeah,
something
that's important.
there's something really, really important that not a lot of people talk about, because you mentioned a roller coaster. Okay.
Yeah,
The cycle to the abuse.
yeah,
Okay. If it was only negative times all the time, no matter what, it would be a lot less abuse going on, because who the fuck would sit there and deal with that all day? Okay. You have to have little moments of intermittent reinforcement, little random moments of happiness and good times and good conversations where things are okay.
mhm,
Okay. This is one of the ways that cult members train their followers, and also how people train dogs, is random moments of goodness and kindness, random tidbits of kindness where you think to yourself, well, maybe it is me. This person's being nice to me right now.
Maybe it's not so
Right?
bad.
Yeah, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe I am the one who's super at fault here. And then you get caught in that cycle of idealization, devaluation, and then discard.
Justification.
yeah,
Idealization, devaluation, discard. That's the cycle of narcissistic abuse that a lot of people talk about. There's a lot of research on this. And the idealization part, we don't tend to think about those moments as being abusive. That's when the person is faking a future together, where things are simpatico and copacetic. That's where they are giving you little tidbits of kindness and love. And we don't necessarily think of that as being abusive. But if you're familiar with the roller coaster and with the cycle, it actually becomes a little bit abusive to be
no,
nice
it's
to
very
somebody
abusive.
when you know, as the abuser, that you're just going to just tear them down soon afterwards, and that it's not
Yeah,
really
it's
genuine, and that it's not really real. The nice things, those become abusive at a certain point. This is one of the things in the abuse log that is it's one of my prouder moments, was being able to set it up so that you can actually see where in the cycle you are, by how you are being treated, and by um how the what is happening here at this time, like which part of the cycle are we in right now. And if you can identify where you are in the cycle, you can pad your fall. Because let's face it, to be discarded by somebody like this, who just love bombed the shit out of you, it's traumatizing.
it's
Okay.
emotionally
You
damaging.
cry
Yeah,
and
for sure.
cry and you hurt, and it's painful. And if you have kids, you're distracted from actually doing the important thing, which is being a parent or whatever.
Yep.
So,
Well,
and this is where it gets, I mean, it's like the gift that keeps on giving. It's not just you that's being harmed, it's all the people around you too. Okay. And if you can identify where you are in this process, you can pad your fall and stand up a little bit quicker once you fall down, because it's coming, right?
Oh yeah.
Idealization, the future faking, it's coming. You're coming for a fall. You're coming to be devalued pretty soon. Okay. Now it hurt. Listen, if she or them, or they were just a bitch to you the whole entire time, and you get used to that kind of treatment, you're not surprised. But if you're led on to believe that this is going to get better, that things are going to heal, that there's a future for you too. It's harder when you fall, when you're devalued, because when you're devalued, that's where the shame and guilt come in. That's where they make you feel like a worthless individual. Okay? They build you up and then they make you feel completely worthless, and then they discard you. They toss you out like trash. Okay?
Well,
and that hurts. That hurts deep down. And if you know where you're at in the cycle, if you can actually write it down, identify exactly what's happening, see it coming, you could see around a corner and stop it from hurting so much. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt no matter what.
Right.
And
Right.
you also have the choice to get off the roller coaster, to
So
jump,
Brett,
to step aside and say, I'm not doing this anymore. And then you click the little button on the app that says no contact. And you check out.
well, Brett, this has been hugely informative, and I appreciate you putting together this app, and I really hope it finds the right audience. I do have one last question I'd like to throw at you as we wrap up, and it's something I didn't see specifically mentioned on the site, but I feel like might be a huge important feature of this, and that is some kind of like a stealth mode for it, much similar to hidden calculator, that you can hide files inside of what looks like an otherwise normal app. Because
Absolutely.
we have
There's a kill switch on there. Do. What are you doing in there? Sweetie, I'm just doing a, what are you doing
looking
there?
at Pornhub. All right. No.
There's a kill switch on there that you can, with one click, turn the whole thing off and shut it down and do the whole thing that way, like you're not being eavesdropped on.
well,
and that was a big ass. That was a huge
switch
aspect, and I literally call it a kill switch on the app.
yeah, a
That is
kill
one of
switch
the
is
big
nice.
things.
I like that. What does the kill switch do
Takes you to
specifically?
well, I don't want to say, but it takes you to a different page or a different site that has nothing to do with abuse or narcissism or anything like that.
Take
Does
you
it
to
delete?
Pornhub.
Does it delete the files, or does it just
No,
kind of temporarily,
no.
basically,
It just
a wall up?
it changes the screen, and everything is being saved as you go. So even if you were to just even if you were to toss your phone in the river, everything is still there. All your
Everything's
logs are preserved.
everything is on the online. And so
Yep.
what I'm asking about is more of a stealth mode where the app just looks like a common, just it doesn't stand out. So like if
Oh,
my
yeah, I know
abuser
what you're saying. Yeah, yeah.
if my abuser gets a hold of my phone while I'm sleeping and starts going through it, they're not going to be able to find that, are they? Or is there a way to make it where that's not obvious?
There is that is some security is something that I take very, very seriously, especially and as well as preserving the logs. Unfortunately, right now, like I said, I'm working on getting some VC, some venture capital to like make this thing really pop the way I want it to. The proof of concept is there. Everything works. It works like a charm. Like it works beautifully. I couldn't be happier with
Just put a
how the
Home Depot logo on the front of the app. She'll never know.
it's actually a cookie recipe. A recipe.
No, because they're gonna want to look into that if it's a woman. That's for sure.
Well, do. What are you doing in there? If you're trying to like log something, do. Nothing, sweetie. I'm just trying to make you some cookies.
I'm trying to poop.
I'm trying to poop and looking
All
up.
right. Well, that's all the questions I had for you today, and I really hope this takes off, and I hope you find the funding necessary to do this, and
Yes,
hopefully this podcast
absolutely.
will help people kind of get a general outlay, an overlay of what you have to offer. And if you're going through this and if you'd like to check out this app, please by all means head over to the abuselogapp.com and check it out.
Abuselogapp.com.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if I had known this was available some years ago, I personally would have downloaded this app myself. So if you're anybody that's currently going through something similar to what I've gone through, or Brett or anybody else, I would highly encourage to download this app.
Appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
it's been great.
Excellent. Any last things you want to tell folks before we let you go?
I just want to say, if you're out there, this is not something that it's something that is hard to understand. It is hard to wrap your head around when you're going through it, especially if you're in the middle of it. We call it a brain fog. There is a way out. There are options, and you are not alone. There is a huge community out there, and I believe that once you start wrapping your head around the terminology, wrapping your head around your own experiences, giving yourself the validation of knowing that what you are experiencing is real, harmful, real harmful, then you'll be able to give yourself the tools in order to get the heck out of it. Okay. So all I hope to do is just bring some information and some opportunity for people who are in the thick of it. And believe me, when I say the thick of it, you know exactly what I mean. It's heady stuff. But you're not alone. You're not alone out there. Okay?
Excellent. What's that website one more time?
abuselogapp.com.
Perfect. All right. You guys have been watching the Unframe of Mind show, where we have uncomfortable conversations without a condom. And this is definitely one of those
No
uncomfortable
different.
conversations that more people probably need to be having. I think these are the kind
Yeah.
of conversations that move the world forward. Way more effective than, you know, what's the latest thing that the Republicans and Democrats are doing. And yeah, if we want to see the world heal, this is where it's going to start, is at the interpersonal level. So yeah, that being said, this has been another episode. I will see you guys on the next one.
All right. See you guys.
Appreciate you, boys.